This series is a reflection on the intersection of artificial intelligence, trust, and human responsibility in financial crime compliance. Each part explores a different dimension of how AI is presenting new threats, reshaping our governance models, workflows, and, most critically, our expectations of human judgment. This isn't intended to be AI hype. It's a provocation, a call to rethink our purpose, the systems we've built, and the assumptions we've inherited. It's about what happens when financial crime evolves and compliance doesn't. Meanwhile, criminals are scaling AI-powered fraud, deepfakes, and synthetic networks in production. They aren't limited by governance, policy, or budget. They're limited only by imagination. The uncomfortable truths. Much of AI in compliance is still stuck in proof of concepts and not deployed into production. Risk appetite and governance delay decisions and deployment, not enable progress. Risk exposure and fraud losses for regulated financial institutions is only increasing as new criminal tactics circumvent legacy controls. But most compliance functions, still reliant on humans doing what machines now do better, still built to spot what criminals did, not what they're about to do. The result? Human effort is poured into low-value tasks. Systems are busy but not intelligent. We're burning investment in areas that could be redeployed to more effectively fight financial crime. We've created the illusion of progress. The reality is, we've scaled inefficiency and called it resilience. This paper calls time on that. It challenges leaders to stop designing around inefficiency and lack of trust in AI and start deploying solutions and building systems that can put AI head-to-head with what criminals are deploying. Because the future of compliance isn't just about cost reduction or replacing people. It's about elevation, rethinking how we work, when machines can do more, driving better risk management outcomes, and, ultimately, trust. And it makes the case for a new FCC model, where human judgment is elevated, where risk isn't just monitored, it's anticipated, and where trust is not a byproduct, but the starting point and backbone. If you're part of the C-suite or a leader in FCC, risk, or governance, this isn't just about technology. It's about credibility, control, and whether you're building systems that are ready for the real world and your mission. The threat is real. AI and technology are ready. The question is, are you? This is In AI We Trust, Rethinking Compliance, Judgment, and Direction in the Machine Age. Part 1. The mission meets its adversary. Financial crime is evolving, and it's evolving faster than most compliance functions are prepared for. While many firms are still defining their AI strategies, criminal networks are already operationalizing theirs. We're not just talking about fraud rings. We're talking about adversaries using large language models, synthetic media, and reinforcement learning to bypass detection in real time. AI isn't just a compliance opportunity. It's now part of the threat model. Compliance must evolve into active defense, embedding proactive deterrence to predict and disrupt threats rather than merely respond to them. Here's what that looks like in practice. Synthetic identities and deepfakes. Generative AI is being used to fabricate entire digital personas, names, documents, even full social media histories. Voice clones and video deepfakes are already being deployed to bypass controls. Most systems can't spot them. Static checks and document scans don't pick up on AI-generated nuance. Criminals are using AI to recruit, manage, and coordinate global money mule networks. Bots handle communication. Instructions are automated. Transactions are synchronized across accounts and jurisdictions. Legacy transaction monitoring systems miss the signs. They weren't designed to detect behavioral coordination, especially when it evolves in real time across geographies. Fraud as a service with AI toolkits. On the dark web, plug-and-play platforms offer automated phishing, fake onboarding, credit card testing, and identity spoofing, all powered by AI. Compliance tools don't simulate these attacks. They react, often slowly. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most FCC systems are built to look backward, but AI-powered adversaries are looking forward, constantly adapting, iterating, personalizing. They don't operate under budget's constraints or cycles. They don't care about policy or governance. They care about what works, and right now, it's working. So let's remember why financial crime compliance exists in the first place. It's not just about control frameworks or audit readiness. It's about human protection. It's about market integrity. It's about stopping harm before it happens. And that mission is now facing its most adaptive, intelligent adversary yet. Next up in Part 2, trust isn't a capability, it's a decision. If Part 1 exposed the adversary, Part 2 asks the harder question, what's really stopping us from responding? The tech is ready. The criminals are ready. But our trust still stuck in theory. This isn't a capability gap, it's a belief gap. Part 2, trust isn't a capability, it's a decision. This series is a reflection on the intersection of artificial intelligence, trust, and human responsibility in financial crime compliance. If Part 1 exposed the adversary, this part asks the harder question, what's really stopping us from responding? The tech is ready. The criminals are ready. But our trust, still stuck in theory. This isn't a capability gap, it's a belief gap. Trust isn't a capability, it's a decision. AI can now outperform humans in key areas of financial crime compliance. Verifying ID and documentation at scale. Consistent and faster alert reviews. Identifying hidden relationships and networks. And yet, most firms still hesitate. Why? Because capability isn't what's missing. Trust is. Firms continue to burn human capital, not because the tools don't work, but because they don't feel trustworthy. Trust isn't binary. It's cultural, emotional, and earned. And unlike human analysts, AI can't look committed in a team meeting. Trust acts as strategic resilience, forming a protective barrier, ensuring compliance systems remain robust under operational stress. So instead of asking, can the model do it? We should ask, do we trust it the way we trust our people? Because right now, human mistakes are tolerated. Machine mistakes are feared. Neither approach is balanced. Some say we need humans in the loop to ensure oversight. They're partly right, but too often that loop is just symbolic and ineffective. Humans are validating outputs they didn't fully understand, from models they were never trained to challenge. That's not effective oversight and assurance, that's performance. The real opportunity, not relocating talent offshore, not just reducing costs or driving simplification, but elevation and more effective risk management. Let I take the strain. Let people lead, drive value, and more effective risk management. Redesign compliance roles around what people do best, shaping policy, interpreting nuance, managing judgment, driving escalation. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The tech and AI is ready. Institutional trust and our operating models aren't, until we treat trust as a design decision, not a byproduct. AI will stay stuck behind human bottlenecks. What would your team look like if you trusted the system? The way you trust the people? What becomes possible? When trust is intentional. Next up, Part 3, the risk of looking modern while acting manual. If this part exposed the trust and belief gap, Part 3 highlights the uncomfortable truth. We've gotten very good at sounding future-ready, but very few are actually operationally or mindset ready. Part 3. The risk of looking modern while acting manual. This series is a reflection on the intersection of artificial intelligence, trust, and human responsibility in financial crime compliance. If Part 2 highlighted the trust and belief gap, this part highlights the uncomfortable truth. We've gotten very good at sounding future-ready, but very few are actually operationally or mindset-ready. For those small number of firms leading the charge, AI in financial crime compliance often looks more mature than it really is. We see firms showcase strategic roadmaps with a small number of actual embedded use cases and ROI, governance models designed to prevent risk by preventing progress, responsible AI policies disconnected from operational systems, risk frameworks with no downstream integration. It looks controlled, it sounds credible, but nothing much is moving. This isn't progress or assurance. It's the illusion of transformation, not the reality of change. True transformation integrates AI as a core defense, proactively safeguarding against vulnerabilities rather than superficially masking them. Some will argue, but we're early stage, it's about direction. Direction is important, but direction without discipline is just motion. Saying AI first means nothing if AI isn't actually embedded and delivering ROI. Hiring ahead of AI isn't transformation, it's potential. Listing AI as a pillar in your 5-year vision, that's branding. Real adoption shows up in workflow, true risk management, and not word count. Here's the uncomfortable truth. We've gotten very good at sounding future-ready, but very few are actually operationally or mindset-ready. And in compliance, where precision matters more than posture, that gap becomes a risk in itself. The real risk, not falling behind in AI capability, but falling for the illusion of progress. It feels safe to work on the framework, but frameworks don't change outcomes. Execution does. What does a real AI-enabled compliance function look like? Policies that are dynamically updated to reflect new obligations and translated into machine-readable formats. Risk appetite thresholds embedded in logic and systems. Alerts triaged before human review. Escalation models that learn and adapt. It's not just cost or headcount reduction. It's elevating people to focus on where judgment matters most, meaningful and high-stakes interventions. It's faster, better, and more effective risk management. If your AI strategy hasn't changed the work or the risk exposure, then it's not a strategy. It's an aspiration, one that's slowly aging in a SharePoint folder. What parts of your AI ambition are still stuck in theory? Where is your model looking modern, but still acting manual? Next up, Part 4, the loop of least resistance. If this part highlighted the illusion of progress, Part 4 highlights the uncomfortable truth that human in the loop was meant to safeguard trust, but when it's poorly designed, it trades real assurance for temporary comfort. Part 4, the loop of least resistance. This series is a reflection on the intersection of artificial intelligence, trust, and human responsibility in financial crime compliance. If Part 3 highlighted the illusion of progress of AI deployment in financial crime compliance, this part highlights the uncomfortable truth that human in the loop was meant to safeguard trust. But when it's poorly designed, it trades real assurance for temporary comfort. Why human in the loop can't just mean human nearby. Human in the loop sounds reassuring, but it's become a security blanket. Most firms interpret it as one analyst signing off AI outputs, a reviewer scanning a dashboard summary, a policy line that says final judgment remains with humans. In practice, that human isn't intervening. they're validating. We've turned oversight into a ritual, visible, predictable, and largely symbolic. A person ticks the box. The model moves on. No one asks, was the model right? We confuse presence for scrutiny, structure for assurance. That's not risk management, it's choreography. Real assurance comes from resilient oversight structures, strengthening defenses through intentional human intervention, not mere validation rituals. Some will argue human oversight is a safety net. True, but only if it works, and too often that safety net is undertrained, overworked, barely empowered to question the machine. If your oversight team can't explain the model, they can't meaningfully challenge it. Here's the deeper issue. When oversight becomes too shallow to add value, it becomes a source of fragility, not resilience. Humans assume the model is right. The model assumes the human will step in. No one truly owns the decision. We end up with a loop, where trust lives everywhere, and accountability lives nowhere. The alternative? Move from validation to curated intervention. Design your loop so humans intervene on edge cases. Override with insight, not intuition. Escalate when judgment is unclear. Teach the model, not just clean up after it. That's how oversight becomes strategic, not symbolic. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Human in the loop was meant to safeguard trust. But when it's poorly designed, it trades real assurance for temporary comfort. Who actually owns the decision in your AI system? Is your loop structured to protect outcomes or just reputations? Next up, Part 5. When AI sounds right but gets it wrong. If this part highlighted the uncomfortable truth around human in the loop, Part 5 highlights the uncomfortable truth if you can't explain how your AI system operates. It doesn't belong in production. Part 5. When AI sounds right but gets it wrong. If Part 4 showed how human in the loop can swap real assurance for comfort, Part 5 takes it further. The most dangerous AI risk in FCC isn't being wrong, it's sounding right when it is. In an era of synthetic conviction, fluency can mask flaws, and confidence can hide gaps your system can't afford to miss. The danger isn't AI getting it wrong, it's AI sounding right when it does. Today's systems can produce confident tone, fluent logic, insightful sounding summaries. But sounding right isn't the same as being right. We're entering an era of synthetic conviction, where machines generate reasons post-decision, rephrase ambiguity into coherence, package flaws in fluent, digestible language. It's not deception, it's design. These tools are built to be persuasive, not always to be correct. Defending against synthetic conviction demands protective transparency, clear, traceable decision-making that deters inaccuracies from going unnoticed. Some say that's why we still have humans reviewing. But here's the problem. Humans trust fluency. We mistake clarity for accuracy, and the more AI gets the tone right, the less we interrogate its logic. It's called automation bias, and it's very human. In FCC, that bias becomes risk, because when a model misjudges a sanctions match, misses a red flag in a client review, summarizes a suspicious activity report with perfect grammar but poor substance, the output feels complete. But the consequences are real. So what do? We build trust through traceability and tension. That means prompt trace registers, who asked what and why, versioned outputs, what changed and when, decision provenance tagging, which data sources, which rules, and which risk thresholds were triggered, confidence scoring with escalation thresholds, override logs, when human judgment stepped in, and how. You don't need perfect accuracy. You need credible, explainable decision paths, because in FCC, Trust isn't a static state, it's a byproduct of transparency under pressure. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If your AI system can't explain itself, it doesn't belong in production. Explainability isn't a feature, it's a prerequisite. When was the last time you questioned an output that sounded right? How do you make space for doubt before confidence gets faked at scale? Next up, Part 6, Rethinking Roles in an AI-First Compliance Function. If this part exposed the risk of trusting outputs just because they sound credible, the next asks what happens when AI really does take the strain, and the work that defined compliance teams for decades disappears. If AI hasn't changed your team's roles, you haven't transformed. You've just shifted inefficiency sideways. Part 6, Rethinking Roles in an AI-First Compliance Function. If Part 5 revealed the danger of fluent but flawed outputs, Part 6 highlights the uncomfortable truth. Many FCC roles today exist because the system is inefficient. However, AI enables elevation, freeing people from low-value tasks and redefining roles around judgment, escalation, and resilience. AI doesn't just change how we work. It changes what we should be working on. In compliance, we've built entire functions around horizon scanning to gap assess and update policies and procedures, reviewing alerts, chasing exceptions. But when AI takes the strain, those tasks disappear, and with them, our comfort zones. The knee-jerk fear is always displacement. But the real opportunity is redefinition and elevation. We're freeing up people to focus on what humans do best: exercising judgment, handling ambiguity, escalating nuance, navigating context, not reviewing the 49th identical alert of the day. Compliance professionals must become strategic defenders, enhancing organizational resilience and proactively protecting against emerging threats. Some will argue, but the tech isn't perfect. Neither are we. We've accepted human imperfection for decades. We need to learn how to accept and manage machine imperfection too. That means defining new roles around AI stewardship, training analysts in model interpretation, letting go of tasks we've wrongly equated with value. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Many FCC roles today exist because the system is inefficient. When the system becomes intelligent, the role must become intentional. What does a future analyst look like? Not an operator. A strategist. Less QA, more sense checking, less alert chasing, more scenario testing, less manual review, more escalation engineering. That's how people stay in the loop, by leveling up, not holding on. If your AI deployment hasn't changed anyone's role, responsibility, or rhythm, you haven't deployed AI. You've just shifted inefficiency sideways. What parts of your compliance team are doing work that machines now do better? And what human potential is waiting underneath that workload? Next up, Part 7, Building Trust, Not Just Tools. If this part explored the redefinition and elevation of roles, the next confronts the adoption barrier that stops transformation before it starts: trust. Because in a high-risk world, trust must be engineered from day one through transparency, accountability, and governance that reflects reality. Part 7, Building Trust, Not Just Tools. If Part 6 focused on redefining roles around AI, Part 7 highlights AI transformation doesn't fail because of bad tech. It fails when trust isn't intentionally engineered into systems, making transparency, accountability, and explainability the true foundations of adoption. AI transformation doesn't fail because of bad tools. It fails because of missing trust. We've seen firms invest in platforms, launch POCs that run for 12 months and still not in production, hire heads of AI or innovation. But when adoption stalls, it's rarely the tech, it's the trust gap. Trust isn't built by declaring human in the loop, it's built by design. That means knowing how the model works, seeing how it's changing, understanding when it errs, defining who's accountable when it does. In short, trust requires transparency, not just traction. Engineered trust provides a defensive shield, embedding deterrence directly into the compliance architecture and safeguarding operational integrity. Some still think trust comes after performance, but in compliance, where risk is asymmetrical, trust must come first. Because if the system isn't believed, it won't be used, and if it's not used, its potential doesn't matter. So how do you build trust into AI? Make decisions traceable, make escalations explainable, audit outputs like you audit people, map roles around accountability, not just coverage, and most of all, create governance that reflects real-world use, not just policy checkboxes. Here's what we've learned from working in FCC. AI doesn't break trust, people do, when they implement it badly. Because if you treat AI like a vendor tool, you'll get vendor-level trust. But if you treat it like a colleague, subject to standards, feedback, and escalation, you start to build something sustainable. This isn't about innovation. It's about institutional trustworthiness in a machine-led age. What would your compliance strategy look like if trust wasn't assumed, but engineered? What if your AI didn't just pass tests, but earned belief? Next up, Part 8, Regulators as Intelligent Orchestrators, Evolving from Rules to Trust. If this part showed why trust must be engineered, the next part highlights the key player who can break the deadlock. Part 8, Regulators as Intelligent Orchestrators, Evolving from Rules to Trust. If Part 7 showed how trust must be engineered, Part 8 examines how regulators can lead at the speed of the threat. Criminals are already operationalizing AI, while compliance teams remain hesitant. The FCA's sandboxes, live testing, and AI lab are strong steps forward. But they only matter if AI-first oversight, engineered trust, and proactive standards become the norm now. Regulators today face a pivotal crossroads. They balance competing pressures. On one side, the necessity to move beyond traditional, static compliance frameworks. On the other, the challenge of aligning evolving technology with existing regulatory mandates. It's a critical juncture, a period of regulatory recalibration, while the threat landscape rapidly evolves. Let's be clear. Criminals aren't waiting. They're operationalizing AI through generative technologies, deepfakes, synthetic identities, and automated fraud-as-a-service platforms right now. Firms are striving for clarity. They need guidance that is both progressive and actionable. The result? Increasing reliance on experimentation without assured oversight. And internal compliance teams? They're caught in ambiguity, often constrained by uncertainty and hesitant due to lack of clarity on regulatory expectations. However, substantial progress is underway. The FCA has significantly advanced its AI strategy, including launching the supercharged sandbox with NVIDIA, enabling enhanced computing power and datasets for safe experimentation, introducing an AI live testing initiative starting September 2025, allowing real-world deployment of AI models under regulatory supervision. Establishing an AI lab to foster collaboration, sharing insights, and developing best practices. Developing a statutory code of practice focusing on accountability, transparency, and ethical AI use in financial services. Yet, more remains necessary. Firms hesitate to adopt robust AI solutions, leaving systems vulnerable. Compliance remains reactive, struggling to stay ahead of sophisticated threats. Innovation stalls, awaiting clearer signals from regulatory leadership. So what further needs to happen? First, AI deployment clarity. Continue to expand initiatives like the Supercharged Sandbox and AI live testing, providing firms with clear, actionable regulatory guidance for high-risk FCC use cases. Second, trust engineering framework. Leverage current efforts in transparency and accountability to establish a structured framework with robust traceability, override logic, and effective human AI escalation protocols. Third, supervisory modernization. Extend current real-time supervisory initiatives, including telemetry and AI oversight dashboards, to enhance regulatory agility and enable proactive intervention. Fourth, convening industry collaboration. Broaden the reach of the AI Lab and international forums to facilitate deeper collective learning, stress testing, and proactive risk management across the sector. Fifth, cultural transformation. Publicly recognize and encourage firms demonstrating genuine transparency and accountability through practical AI testing, even when imperfections arise. But there's more. This isn't only about refining existing frameworks. It's about evolving the regulatory model itself. Here's the expanded call to action. Embed AI-first thinking into regulatory practices. AI oversight shouldn't be retroactively fitted onto existing regulations. It must be at the core of how regulators define, assess, and respond to evolving FCC risks. Design regulatory frameworks that assume dynamic intelligence, not static compliance. Make trust operational, not theoretical. Assurance must be explicitly engineered into systems. Every decision, model adjustment, and escalation should be logged, explainable, and transparent. Compliance doesn't need perfect AI, it needs accountable AI. Champion proactive compliance culture. Regulatory bodies should reinforce that compliance isn't merely about adherence to rules. It's about safeguarding market integrity, protecting consumers, and preempting financial crime. That's the fundamental purpose of compliance, and regulators must advocate for this mission clearly and forcefully. Here's the ask. If you're a regulator, continue to lead decisively, provide guidance on regulatory expectations, and deepen practical experimentation with AI. If you're in FCC compliance, actively participate in initiatives such as regulatory sandboxes and AI labs, shaping robust and responsive AI systems. If you lead compliance teams, empower your people with clear guidelines, continuous learning, and tools to effectively manage AI-driven risks. If you're part of the C-suite, prioritize investment in robust AI systems and regulatory alignment, understanding that operational resilience depends on proactive engagement. This isn't about staying ahead of regulation, it's about staying ahead of harm. Next up, Part 9, Slack Tide, the Cost of Waiting. If this part highlighted the role of regulators, the next highlights the cost of waiting and the industry call to action, because the biggest risk isn't moving too early, it's moving too late. Part 9, Slack Tide, the Cost of Waiting. If Part 8 highlighted the role of regulators, Part 9 highlights the cost of waiting and the industry call to action, because the biggest risk isn't moving too early, it's moving too late. Chief risk officers today face a new kind of paralysis. They sit between opposing forces. On one side, a growing awareness that legacy systems aren't enough. On the other, uncertainty, regulatory ambiguity, cultural inertia, and fear of moving too fast. It's a slack tide, a moment of still water, while the criminal tide accelerates. This moment demands strategic deterrence, proactive regulatory alignment, and investment to build resilience before threats materialize. Let's be clear. Criminals aren't waiting. They're operationalizing generative AI, deepfakes, synthetic identities, and fraud as a service tools right now. Regulators aren't aligned. Some push for innovation, others hesitate. The result? Mixed signals and hesitation disguised as caution. And internal teams? They're stuck, often overwhelmed by complexity and under-equipped to evaluate AI risk, assurance, or readiness. This limbo has consequences. Operational risk compounds as detection systems lag behind adversaries. Compliance becomes reactive, not proactive. Innovation bottlenecks at the top when FCC leaders aren't empowered to act. So what needs to happen? 1. Human-first AI integration. Build systems where AI augments, not replaces, judgment. Your best analysts should be working with AI, not cleaning up after it. 2. A culture shift in risk leadership. CROs and compliance leaders must move from gatekeepers to strategic enablers, actively driving intelligent risk-taking, not simply policing the edge. 3. Proactive alignment with regulators. Engage early, help shape the standards, don't wait to comply with them once it's too late. But there's more. This isn't just about fixing broken controls. It's about building the next operating model for FCC. So here's the extended call to action. Adopt an AI-first design approach. AI shouldn't be a feature bolted onto legacy systems. It should be at the heart of how we assess risk, escalate risk, and monitor behavior. Design workflows that assume intelligence, not inefficiency. Make trust an engineering challenge, not a philosophical debate. Assurance must be traceable. Every prompt, every override, every threshold, logged and explainable. Compliance doesn't need perfect AI. It needs credible, accountable AI. Reclaim the financial crime compliance mission. Financial crime compliance isn't just technical risk management. It's human protection. It's market integrity. It's stopping harm before it happens. That's purpose. That's power. And that's what's worth building around. So here's the ask. If you architect AI, design with purpose, explainability, and trust from the outset. And if you're an FCC professional, own your specialism. This is a craft built on decades of judgment, nuance, and escalation logic. You're not being replaced, you're being amplified, and the profession needs voices who know the difference. AI isn't a threat to that. It's a force multiplier. If you lead a compliance team, start the transformation, upskill yourself on AI so you understand its capability and how it can be applied in the context of the threats you face and your control framework. If you're in the C-suite, resource this like the future depends on it. Because it does. The biggest risk isn't moving too early. It's moving too late.